Okay, students, going over some examples from the Chapter 4 Algebra 1 test practice assignment here. So red here is some vocab for you. Chapter 4 is about similarity. Similarity, you're always setting up proportions. So they're proportion. So recall, a proportion is a ratio that equals another ratio. Remember, ratio is a fraction. So some people say a fraction equals a fraction. How do you solve all proportions? You cross multiply, set equal each other. As you see right here, when there's more than one term in a numerator or denominator, you must put parentheses. So that's why you see number 2 here. You have parentheses around the numerator and denominator because they both on the left ratio because they both have more than one term in them. And if you forgot, terms are separated by plus and minus signs. So each have 2 terms there. So now I cross multiply. Okay, that is written over here. So I got 4t plus 16. That's written right up here. Now, this is your number 2. Cross multiplying, set them equal to each other, and t minus 2 times 1 is just t minus 2. Of course, bring the smaller variable over to the bigger side, so subtract the t across, you get 3t, and therefore subtract the 16 across, negative 2 minus 16 is negative 18, and last step, divide by 3, and you get negative 6. That's from middle school math, pre-algebra. Okay, so there's number 2 done for you. You're going to set up proportions for 3 and 4. Remember, if carats, in this case, if carats are in the numerator and ounces in the denominator, then on the other side, it must be carats in the numerator and ounces in the denominator. Okay, when you set up your proportion. All right, these middle ones also similarity. You're going to set up proportions. Now you got to remember from geometry, it tells you right here which angle corresponds to which other angle. So you should remember from geometry, A corresponds to X, B to Y, and C to Z. And don't forget these lowercase letters, those represents the sides opposite the angles. So this little b means the side, as you see right here, the length of the side opposite the angle itself. Angles, remember, always capital letters. All points are capital letters. Lowercase letters represent side lengths. In the most common way is to name it by the angle opposite it. Okay, so you set up the given information they have there, okay, to find the others. So obviously, in order to solve a proportion, you have to know 3 of the 4. So you have to set it up so that you know 3 of the 4, just like we had up here in number 1, for example. Okay, you know 3 out of the 4, you can solve for the 4th one. Okay, so go ahead and fill in those lengths where they give you for number 5. B is 15. X is 16. Y is 20. And Z is 10. Okay, so we look at which one. Obviously, B has to be matching up with something over on the other side. What does B match up with? B matches up with Y. So I have B over Y. So 15 over 20, that's my ratio when I'm going from this triangle to this triangle. So I put the 15 on the top, that represents the right triangle, 20 in the left triangle. So now I must go ahead and solve for A and C. So if I'm going to put A up here, because again, this is the right one, we'll call it right and left. Okay, so the right one goes up here as well. So that's going to be my A. What letter corresponds with the A in the other triangle? A corresponds with X. So what's the length of X? 16. Okay, so I have my 3 out of the 4 now, and what I would do first is I would simplify the 15/20ths. Okay, so we have 15/20ths reduces down to 3/4 equals A over 16. Now I could cross multiply and then set equal each other and solve for the variable, or I could look at 4 times what is 16 times 4. Whatever I do in the denominator, I must do in the numerator. So 3 times 4 is 12. So A is 12 here, okay? And you do the same idea for solving for C. So that takes care of, and you do the same idea on 6 and 7 as well. Just happens to be with fractions. Okay. Now with fractions, you can either change them to decimals if you like. 'Cause remember, you're going to use a calculator in here. So you could change 2.5 to 2.5 and 5.5 to 5.5. That'd probably be the easiest in doing that. All right, 8 through 10 here, we're dealing with sine, cosine, and tangent, SOHCAHTOA. Okay, written right here. You should recognize this from geometry and algebra 2. Well, in this particular book, they teach it in algebra 1 in this older book here. So it still should be fresh in your head. You've done it for the last 2 years. Okay, so if we're looking at number 8 here, it says if A is 9, okay, all right, I had done last up here. So I've shown 9, 8 already done for you. These numbers I have up here are for number 9. So let's do number 9 so I don't have to change the numbers. So if A is 12, I put a 12 there. B is 13. C is 5. I should recognize that as Pythagorean triple, 5, 12, 13. I had you guys work on memorizing that if you had me in geometry. Find the tangent of C. So remember, tangent, if we look up here, is opposite over adjacent. So if you need to put that, opposite over adjacent. And here's C. What's the opposite side? 5. And what's the adjacent side? 12. Remember, adjacent means next to. So one of the things I want to do, you should have been taught this already. Identify the hypotenuse first. And since we're dealing with C, this will be the adjacent side, and this will be the opposite side. Fill those in like that, and then it's easy to fill in the O and the A, and you get 5/12. Okay, I showed you with these numbers, I fill in the A and the B there for number 8. Let's go ahead and get rid of this now so you can see this. Number 8, we're solving for the angle A right there is what we're trying to solve for. It said A itself equaled 9. So I'm just going to put that in here. And B was 19. So I need to recognize, if I'm solving for A, that this is the opposite. So here's my hypotenuse. Let's change the color here. Hypotenuse, and I should recognize this as opposite. So I have the opposite and the hypotenuse given to me. I look up here in SOHCAHTOA, opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So I have the sine of x or sine of theta, or you should put theta in there, equals the opposite, 9 over the hypotenuse, 19. How do I get rid of sine? Because I got to solve for the theta. Inverse sine. Where do you pronounce that? Inverse sine. Okay, let's try this again here. We got fire alarms going off. So to get rid of sine, you got to do inverse sine on both sides. That cancels the sine out. So I'm with theta. And remember, when I put this in my calculator, I need to make sure I'm in degrees. I'm solving for the degree measure, nearest degree. My calculator needs to be in degrees. You change that with the mode. Remember, by default, your graphing calculator is in radians. So you check your mode, make sure it's in degrees, and then you go ahead and just type your inverse sine on your calculator, parentheses 9 divided by 19, and it gives you the answer. Okay. Let's go down here. Man, I worked out a lot more problems. This was from the, because I struggled so much with this one last year. You see a lot of problems worked out here. All right, 31. I didn't do that so good. Okay. Let's see, 13. The rate of sales tax is 5.5%. Remember, change that to decimal, move it 2 places to the left. What's the amount of tax charged on a pair of shoes that costs $28? Okay, so the amount of tax, I gotta change that 5.5% to a decimal, 2 places to the left. So I'm doing 28 times 0.055. It's 2 places left, and you get $1.54. Okay. If you're talking about the price increase or decrease, you need to remember this formula right, or this algebraic expression right here. New minus old divided by old, and then the times by 100 is move the decimal places 2 places to the right to change it to percent. So you can either say times by 100, or you just move it two places to the right yourself after you do new minus old divided by old. Okay. All right, let's go to the next page here. The probability of rain is 0.3 or 30%. So the probability of it not being rain, not, is 70%, 0.7 or 0.70, same thing. Find the odds that it will not rain. Now, here's the difference. Probability is the 0.7 over the total amount. Odds is not that way. Odds is for versus against. So the odds that it will not rain is 0.7, and the odds that it, so that's not rain versus rain. So 0.7 and 0.3, you can just multiply both sides by 10, and then you get 7 to 3. Okay, so odds means what the percent in favor of it, which is 70%, versus the percent against it, or not in favor of it, 30%. So that's the difference for odds. Probability is 4, which would be 70% out of the total 1. Okay, so you got to remember the difference between probability versus odds there. All right, let's look at 20. Yeah, so I hadn't worked out this many problems for the students last year. This was the next day working out problems because they struggled so much on this. Two airplanes leave the Atlanta airport at the same time, traveling in opposite directions. One plane travels 30 miles an hour faster than the other. After 3 hours, the planes are 30,150 miles apart. What's the rate of each plane? Well, one plane is going X, and the other is going X plus 30. Okay, we have this formula, dirt. Distance equals rate times time. Okay, so the distance, that's the 3130 that they were apart, it says. After how long? The time, that was the 3. So that's the time there, and that's the time there. So rate, we don't know what the rate was, X, but we know the other rate was 30 miles an hour faster, so X plus 30. So here's my setup. What is the rate of each plane? Okay, so here's my equation. And I go ahead and distribute the 3 through there and combine like terms. I get 6x plus 90 equals 3150. Subtract the 90 across and divide by 6, and x equals 510 miles per hour for one plane, and then obviously x plus 30 would be 540 for the other plane. Okay, and we'll go ahead and stop right there. I've done quite a bit right there for you.